Hello, my name is Winston Wallace. Yesterday was my birthday, December 1st. Today, of course, is December 2nd. It's year 2010. My good friend Carissa, my niece, is always asking me to tell her about the old days, tell her about when I was young, tell my story. So I thought I would tell it to Carissa briefly, my story. Probably wouldn't be too interesting to most people, but I don't know. I guess some people are interested in, depending on your time frame, your reference, where you're at in life, what you call the old days. I know people that were born in 1990 think of the old days as the 90s, and the 80s, those born in the 80s or 70s think of those years as being the old days. Well, I was born in 1942, so to me, the old days are obviously the 40s, 50s, 60s, even the 70s now, or the years have passed by. Anyway, to get back to my story, I was born December 1st, 1942, in Gorman, Texas. That's a little town in north central Texas in Eastland County. Used to be known as the peanut capital of the Southwest. Uh, my dad was a tenant farmer, sharecropper, if you will. In other words, he didn't have his own land. He farmed someone else's land. In return for that privilege, he gave 1/4 of the proceeds of his crop to the landowner. So he was a tenant farmer most of all my growing up years, and the crop he raised back there in Texas was peanuts. Anyway, I was born in 1941. I'm sorry, 1942. The war had just started about a year previous to that, December 7th, 1941. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. So the war was on. The war was going full blast when I was born. We lived out in the country in a little house. I don't have too many memories of it, but basically we had no running water. The only heat we had, I believe, was from a fireplace, wood fireplace. We had no toilet, no no amenities whatsoever. It was an old wooden shack, basically, but it was our home. And there, that place was where my oldest brother Robert was born. My second brother Joe was born. I was born there, and I believe all of us brothers, except the youngest Jerry, was born on that place. We call it Lewis Sanders' place. Lewis Sanders was the fellow who owned that place, owned the property, owned the old house and the peanut land my dad farmed. I don't recall too much about those years. We moved when I was almost turning 5 to what we call the Parks Place, probably 10 miles away out in the country, to probably a house that was even worse than the previous house. Uh, Once again, we had no running water inside. There was a pump outside that ran continually for water that went to an oil well some distance away. So we did have access to water outside. I remember my mom had an old kerosene stove, and there again we had a fireplace where we burned wood. And once that fire went out, there was no heat. On those cold winter nights, it was cold. It was probably colder inside than it was outside. And I have a lot of happy memories about those places, really. About that place, what we call the Parks Place. Uh, I can remember our mom on a cold winter night heating up an iron like you would iron with back in those days. We didn't have electric iron. They had an iron like you would put on the stove to get it hot. You would iron with that. And she would take that iron or irons and maybe wrap up some cloth in it, and on a cold winter night, she would put it uh, against our feet for, if you will, a foot warmer. I recall that. That was we had a wonderful mom, and I can remember, like, on the cold mornings, like I said, we had no inside toilet at all. We'd have to go outside and go to the bathroom, and she would give us a little tin can as us little kids to pee in, and she would take it outside and dump it. And I thought that was kind of special. Uh, I started school on that place, the Parks place, 1948. All the roads in those days were unpaved. They were dirt road, gravel road. I can still see the old school bus coming in the distance, and us kids, probably Robert first, the oldest, and we were all strung out running for the bus. Seems like we're almost late every morning. You could see the bus probably coming down the road in the distance, maybe a mile away, and we'd all be running across that peanut field catching it. The bus stop was probably gosh, quarter, half mile away. Seemed like quite a ways when you're a little kid, and I can recall my mom making us back in those days. Didn't have too many store-bought clothes. She usually bought her pants, but shirts and coats. She was a great seamstress. She had a lot of talent. She could do anything, everything. My mom. She would make us shirts out of flour sacks that you could buy in town, or feed sacks. In those days, a lot of the feed sacks and flour sacks had cloth made of all kinds of different designs of cloth. You could make clothes out of it, which a lot of folks did in those days. And I can remember I didn't particularly like the designs. They were, to me, they looked like a girl's design. A lot of times it'd be flowers and stuff like that. But I did wear the shirts to school because I didn't have too much choice on that. But I recall one time she made me a coat from from a lady, a grown lady coat. She cut it up and made me a little coat, and it was gray. And to me, it just looked too girly. She made my brother Joe a green coat that looked even more girly. Anyway, I was, I guess, stupid and ashamed to wear my coat to town. I mean, to the school. So I would wear it to the bus stop there where our mailbox was on the old dirt road, and I would take it off on the coldest of winter days and stuff it in the mailbox and go to school without a coat, without a jacket. And when the school day was over and the bus driver dropped us back off, I would get it back out of the mailbox and, act like I wore it to school. And that was really stupid. I shame myself for doing something like that. My mother spent a lot of time doing the best she could with what she had. We were very poor in those days. We went barefooted most of the time, like till sixth or seventh grade. We didn't have no shoes or wear any shoes to school. And the only time you wear shoes is be in the cold of winter where you just really couldn't understand anymore. And most of the time those shoes would be just hand me downs or just holes in the bottom. I remember I had one pair of shoes I had to put some cardboard in to wear to school. So we were very poor, but you know, I guess didn't really realize how poor we were. We were happy. We were healthy. We ate real good. We raised our own pigs, our own cows. We had fresh milk. We had a great garden. Mama was a great cook and canner. Back in those days, the ladies would can, and we had all kinds of good food. We had a lot of fresh food, of course, during that growing season. I can remember those fresh onions and fresh tomatoes and fried okra. Man, fried okra. Oh, Jesus. I still yearn for fried okra and just black-eyed peas. And uh, every morning, Mama would make the greatest breakfast, just standard. I mean, it would be a full bore breakfast. It'd be biscuits and gravy and sausage and eggs and hot coffee or chocolate. And I mean, we ate so good. And we always had a lot of meat to eat. We grew up too on, like most folks did back in those days, pinto beans, which I still love today, red beans, pinto beans, cornbread, fried potatoes. God, I bet we had fried potatoes at least once a day. And I still love fried potatoes. Uh, anyway, I'm going to call this chapter one, and I'm going to let you go for now. Uh, I'll be getting back to you a little soon, and we'll go to chapter two. Hello, everyone. This is December 3rd, 2010. This is chapter 2 of my story. Chapter 1, I was relating some of the things I remember when we moved to our second home, what we call the Parks place. Like I've said previously, I have a lot of good memories of that place, even though it was basically a rundown shack. I explained earlier in chapter 1 about in the old house, how rundown it was, how we had no indoor plumbing, no indoor toilet. Our mom had just no kerosene stove to cook on, just a fireplace for the heat in the wintertime. No amenities whatsoever. Uh, we live approximately 5 miles out in the country from our little town of Gorman, Texas, and I was relating how we caught the school bus. We had to run across a field, probably half mile away, to catch that old bus, come on the old country road. Another story I would like to relate is kind of what we did for entertainment. We didn't have any TV at that time. In the late 40s and early 50s, TV was very, very rare. I can remember as a youngster going to the movie. We called it the picture show back in those days. And we'd get out of the movie and walk down the street, and then W.C. Browning's appliance store, you would see this new thing called a TV. There were several on display, and mostly it was reception was horrible back in those days. Black and white, just snow, and you had to have a big antenna to get good reception, a tall antenna. Excuse me. And but it was quite the rage. The TV was just coming out, and they're very expensive at the time, and most folks couldn't afford them. We definitely couldn't. We did have a radio though, and back in those days there were many, many shows on the radio, drama shows, comedy shows, lots of music, of course. Back in Texas, country music, country western music was really what was going on. I can remember some of my favorite radio shows was The Lone Ranger, I Was a Communist for the FBI, Art Linklater Show, Fibber, McGee and Molly, Green Hornet, just on and on. There were just so many shows. My older brother Robert especially liked one show, The Lone Ranger. He was in love with that show. We had a radio. It was placed on top of an old dresser of drawers on top, quite a ways up for small kids. We had to get on a chair even to reach it or turn it on. And I can remember coming home from school and listening to Spanky and Our Gang. And like I said, my brother, especially Robert, loved the Lone Ranger show. He would get up on that chair and just put his ear right to the radio and listen to the whole show, standing there listening to the Lone Ranger. It was a very popular show at that time, and all of us kids loved it. He especially loved it. And I can remember where my mom used to buy Cheerios, popular cereal at the time. Well, just like it is today, still very popular cereal, Cheerios. And there were coupons, box top, that you could save and send in a certain amount, and maybe with 50 cents or $1, I don't recall how much, and get a Lone Ranger badge. So Robert faithfully saved the appropriate amount of coupons and sent in the required amount of money, and he got his Lone Ranger badge in the mail, and he was very, very proud of that badge. So one day though, me and my brother Joe, who's about a year and a half older than me, we were always playing kind of head games, fun games with Robert. He was so serious. He took everything really serious. He always did. when he was growing up. He was very studious and very proper, and he studied hard and worked hard, and he was, even as a kid, kind of a no nonsense guy. So we devised this scheme to take his Lone Ranger badge, steal it, and play a trick on him. So we got his Lone Ranger badge, and there was like a little plum thicket, oh, probably 30, 40 yards from the house, basically just almost in front of the house, 30, 40 yards maybe, not too far in the house. And we used to play in that little plum thicket, kind of use it for a little hideout and so forth. And soil, the soil was very sandy, soft as I recall. So we devised this scheme, this plan to dig a big hole. So we dug this big hole, and we covered it with like probably limbs from the plum trees and just whatever we could, grass and so forth, to hide it, so you could not see the hole. It looked like just part of the ground there, part of the grass, so to speak. And so the plan was for me to stand behind the hole, waving Robert's Lone Ranger badge, which we'd taken, uh, and have him fall in the hole. So Joe went in the house and yelled at Robert, 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 Winston has your Lone Ranger badge. Winston has your Lone Ranger badge. Robert was immediately out to kill somebody, namely me. Here I was on the other side of the hole. Yeah, Robert, here's your badge, just taunting him. He come running just as hard as he could. He was going to kill me. He come running just as hard as he could, his arms swinging, ready to kill his little brother on the other side of that hole, which he did not know existed. He ran just as hard as he could, and just before he got to me, he fell in that hole. And I can still remember that surprised look on his face. Just sort of, what the heck happened? And we run away. I don't remember the rest of the story. He probably beat me up as soon as he caught me, but that story still sticks in my mind, almost like yesterday. We were always playing tricks on Robert. I can remember, like at night, he'd be in there studying by the light, and like I said, he was always a serious kid. Uh, he would be studying by the light, and I would yell through the window, uh, Robert loves Letha Yarborough, and he would, oh, that would just set him in a rage. He would throw down his books. He'd come outside. Remember one time he caught me, he just pounding on my back, just beating me up. But it was always fun to play with Robert. He, like I said, he took things so serious, like he probably still does today. He's a lawyer today. He'll probably, I'm sure he remembers some of these stories I'm relating. Anyway, that's just another memory I had on the old Parks Place there. I think it was, gosh, when we moved from that place, probably about the fourth grade. I think it was 1954 or 1955. We moved to another place called the Wallace Place. Now, our name is spelled Wallace, and that place was spelled Wallis. Just coincidence, I guess, that it had the same name as our name. And that place was a little more upgrade. It was just, it was still way out in the country, probably, I say way out, probably 5 miles out in the country. And it was a little nicer place, I guess. It still had no amenities, no indoor plumbing. It did have a kitchen sink where there was water, just cold water as I recall. We had to heat the hot water to do the dishes and so forth. And I can remember one time my dad told me to do the dishes. He was yelling at me, "Go do the dishes." My mom had bought the store 8 plastic tumbler, new glasses, 8 plastic tumbler glasses. So I put them in the. I was not real happy about doing dishes. I was kind of a lazy kid. I didn't like to do. I thought that was kind of like woman's work. But anyway, Daddy, you didn't mess with him. He told you to do the dishes. You did the dishes. So I got in there and I remember heating up some boiling hot water and poured it in the sink with the dishes. And it melted all Mama's brand new plastic tumblers. And Daddy was about ready to kill me. And I can remember Mama coming to my defense saying, Dad's name was Joe. She said, Joe, I don't think Winston meant to do that. He didn't realize they would. He didn't realize they would melt those tumblers. Anyway, Daddy didn't give me a whipping that day because of Mama's intervention. He let it go, but he was very angry. He thought I did it on purpose, which I didn't do. It truly I didn't do it on purpose. Uh, anyway, at that place, like I say, it was about 5 miles out in the country, and it was still a dirt road, and have a lot of fond memories of that place. We had lots of woods to swim in. Back there, we had what they call tanks or stock tanks for the cattle. The government typically would help you, uh, you know, build this pond, this tank, or pay for it. And most folks back there, in order to water their cattle, had a tank or stock pond. So those were our swimming holes, and there were lots of tanks or stock ponds all around. Each neighbor would have a tank or stock pond, and we knew all our neighbors, and they knew us, and we were friends with them. So we could always, even without we didn't have to ask them. We could go swimming whenever uh, in their tanks. So have a lot of fond memories of swimming and fishing in those tanks. We call them stock ponds. And looking back, most of them were pretty dirty. Okay, none of them were clear, but at the time, that's what we had. That was our swimming holes, our swimming pools. That was where we swam, and had a lot of fond memories of swimming in those tanks, fishing in those, and we had lots of woods. We had a little creek. I guess there was a river there, Leon River, a little tributary off the Leon that if you walk far enough up that little creek, you would run into the Leon River. And we spent lots of times wading that creek, hunting. Uh, we used to go squirrel hunting with our dog and just exploring. And some days we'd be out all days just roaming the woods and just having a good time. And have a lot of fond memories about walking in the woods and hunting squirrels and going swimming and just exploring and walking and just being kids. It was many wonderful memories. In those days, we had a lot of freedom to do really what we wanted to do. If we weren't assigned a chore or a job, maybe hoeing the peanuts or hauling hay or something like that. Weren't, if Daddy didn't have any chores for us, lots of days we could just, especially in the summertime when there was no school, we'd take off and be gone all day, and they didn't really worry about us. They, I guess we'd be okay, and we didn't have to really check in or anything. There was no cell phones. In fact, we never had a phone till I guess till I come back from the Navy. I'm pretty sure we never had a TV or a telephone. Uh, the way of communicating back there was basically a mail. Most folks back those days wrote letters. You'd write letters to your friends, relatives. I can remember Grandma Wallace. She'd always send me a birthday card. Birthdays in our family was not the big of an event like some kids today. It was my mom always made us a cake. Other than that, it was you know kind of another day. I don't recall anyone ever singing happy birthday. I don't recall any presents whatsoever. But I do recall my Grandma Wallace, God bless her. She was a wonderful, sweet lady. She'd always send us kids a birthday card, and I can remember I always waited on that card on my birthday, and she faithfully would always send it, and there would always be a dime in it. Back then, a dime was a pretty big deal. You could go to the movies, I recall. Kids could go for 9 cents, and the adults could go for like 25 cents. And going to the movies was a real big deal. We always went on Saturday. I don't think we ever went during the week. Uh, we'd go on Saturday if Daddy wasn't too tired from plowing the peanuts. Uh, we looked so forward to that, going to the movies. And typically it'd be a Western, a Gene Autry, or Roy Rogers, Lash LaRue, the Durango Kid. Usually a double feature, Bowery Boys, and there'd always be a good cartoon, which we love, Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, kind of the old fashioned Sylvester the Cat, Tweety Bird, the old fashioned cartoons, which pretty rare nowadays. You can still see them, I guess, but we love the cartoons, and they'd have an ongoing serial, uh, which was exciting too. Can hardly wait to get back to next Saturday to see how somebody did the impossible. Uh, I can remember going there and getting a bag of popcorn or Fifth Avenue candy bar. That was just like heaven. Like I said, we didn't have any TV, so going to the movies, going to the picture shows, or one called it, was that was a big deal for us. That was our entertainment. That and the like I said, we did a radio. You could listen to the radio shows, and but the movies, the picture show was really something special at the time. Look forward to that. Uh, anyway, I'll get back to a few more things tomorrow. Uh, Chapter 3. So until then, I bid you a good day.